Robert Downey Jr. made Iron Man. I was mystified by the success of that. I was like, there's no way Iron Man is going to be a hit because he's got a metal thing in front of his face. Like
Yeah, right.
it's
Yeah.
literally an unexpressive, panel in front of his face. And they, God bless Jon Favreau. He did an amazing job of that. But God bless Robert Downey. Like he made that Tony Stark. It wasn't about Iron Man. It was about Tony Stark, and they figured that out. And he, obviously knocked it out of the park, and has been duly remunerated for that.
Bomb. James Bond. Cannonball!
Been like this all day.
Did you rub my lamp?
1,000 generations to begin now.
Here we go.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to FilmSpeak, where the conversation continues after the credits. If this is our first time meeting, hey, my name is Griffin Schiller. I'm an LA-based entertainment journalist and film critic. And if you want to be a part of that conversation, you are definitely in the right place. Consider subscribing to the channel for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite pieces of entertainment. And I am thrilled because today I am back with another interview for you all, and it's not just any interview, okay? Let's just preface this. This is I'm still kind of shocked that I got him on the show, but lo and behold, we were able to make it happen. And so today I am absolutely ecstatic to be able to bring you all my conversation with the great Jon Hamm. Now, I am in the unique position here where I don't think my guest needs much of an introduction, but for those of you who may live under a rock, Jon Hamm played the iconic Don Draper in AMC's Mad Men from 2007 to 2015. The show won all sorts of Emmys. Jon won an Emmy and was up for all sorts of accolades and is truthfully one of the best television shows ever created. So, if you've been lying to your friends about maybe watching Mad Men, it might be time to get on that. It's on Netflix. You really don't have an excuse. But what a lot of people might not know about Jon is that he is an incredible comic. Now, he's not a stand-up comedian, but he did float around in comedic circles when he first came out to LA, going out and making friends with a lot of those late-night stand-up comedians. And so he has a natural ability for comedy, and so it's what made him such an enjoyable part in NBC's 30 Rock in this recurring role. Obviously, you remember him with the hook hands, right? It's what made him such an incredible SNL host. Truthfully, one of the best SNL hosts that we've ever seen. It's also what made him great in shows like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and films like Tag. He's got a natural knack for comedy, and I don't think he gets enough credit for it. I'm sure many of you are fans of his role in Edgar Wright's Baby Driver, and that's just really scratching the surface in terms of his career achievements. The thing I like about Jon was that after his run on Mad Men, he wasn't interested in the next big thing, in being the leading man in everything he was a part of. He was more interested in collaboration. And so when you look across his entire filmography, you'll see that he worked with people that he was interested in working with. He wanted to make cool stuff. He didn't care about how big of a role he had. He just wanted to be in a creative environment with the people who not only inspired him, but that fascinated him, and people whose work he's followed for years. And you don't see that in a lot of actors. And his latest project, Wild Mountain Thyme, is no exception, as he's been a fan of director John Patrick Shanley for years, probably back since Moonstruck first came out. And so we talk about that feel-good film and why exactly he thinks it's the antidote to this wretched year that is 2020. And of course, me being a big NHL hockey fan and Jon being basically the unofficial mascot for the St. Louis Blues, we do get into hockey a little bit, and in a way that just allows his passion for the game to seep out, and possibly why he's able to connect with those players as well as he is. We talk about the state of television and film and streaming and comic books, and oh yeah, we also touch on Top Gun 2 and whether or not he's going to be in that shirtless volleyball scene that you can expect next summer, and so much more. Listen, guys, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but this conversation with Jon Hamm is one of my favorites that I've ever done. Jon is a genuine guy, straight shooter, just such a pleasant individual, and it was really great to have this conversation with him. Before we get started though, jump down in the comments section and let me know what your favorite Jon Hamm performance is. All right, enough chit chat. I've talked enough. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Jon Hamm. One of the big things that I was really excited about this interview for is because I know that you're a massive hockey fan, and I don't get to talk to hockey fans all that often when I'm interviewing people on the circuit. Well, just, essentially because you become like the unofficial mascot for the St. Louis Blues, how, like, has hockey always been a big part of your life, or is it something that you kind of came to later on? Because I don't believe you played growing up, did you?
No, I didn't play growing up. I couldn't afford it. Hockey is one of those really cool sports, but it has a lot of gear, and you need to, unless you're in a real, kind of like, unless you grew up in the wilds of Saskatchewan or, Alberta, and they have, loads of free hand-me-down stuff. It was always hard. And, whatever, I played other sports, but I always loved hockey. It was the perfect kind of combination of elegance and violence, which remains. But, I just, the Blues were always around in St. Louis, and they were the inexpensive alternative sporting option, really, which was kind of nice. It was like, I could go put a Blues jersey on right now. I have one on the other room that the Sklar brothers sent me as a thank you for doing their show. It's a vintage Gary Unger jersey. So,
oh man, that's nice. Did you get? I assume you got one of the reverse
retros. Yeah, I have that in the room too.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a Caps fan because I'm originally from the DC area. But dude, those things like sold out in minutes. I couldn't even get my hands on one of them. It was like, I've never seen a hockey jersey sell out.
Yeah, it was a good idea. It's like, and the Blues one was those 90s uniforms were controversial when they came out, to say the least. And the reverse retro ones were very interesting because, all the sports websites were like best to the worst or whatever. And they were like, for every other list, they were either the best or the worst. Like, it was so, I'm like, that's what you want. You want a polarizing opinion. You want something that gets the people talking. So,
oh yeah, no, for sure. It was sort of like the same for us too, because it was like, I grew up watching the Caps play in like the Screaming Eagle jersey, so it was nice to see them go back to that with the with the old colors and everything. But yeah, it was definitely a little, I guess it was a bold statement to say the least. But
right.
Some of the other ones, like with the Whalers and the Nordiques, that was such a smart move on their part.
Yeah. I mean, recognizing the sort of franchise's history is very cool, and some people whiffed it. I think the Red Wings one looks kind of like a practice jersey, but the Blackhawks one is a little lackluster. But it's whatever. It's like it's the idea was solid, and it's anything that kind of gets people excited about hockey, I think is a great thing. And for me, like I have a picture of the photo of the team on the ice after they won the cup, and it's like that will forever be a memory. You know it too. Like when the Caps won 2 years or 3 years ago, whenever it was.
I mean, it was surreal. It was one of those times where it's like, man, I really wish that I was like back home for that.
I was stuck in Canada. I was in Vancouver watching the trailer. I was doing a commercial up there, and I was by myself in a trailer, just kind of like, I can't believe this is happening. And then I got on a plane the next day and flew to St. Louis and met the team there, and got to go to the team dinner and got to drink out of the cup and got to party with those guys, and it was just phenomenal. Like I'm friends with more of my generation of the guys, although I'm buddies with a couple of the guys on this iteration of the team, but like Kelly Chase and Brett Hull and Brendan Shanahan and those guys, Garth Butcher. I know those guys because the story goes is I used to be a waiter and a bartender in St. Louis, and I used to wait on those guys. They used to come to my bar, and they come in after games and just eat $4,000 worth of food, fill the tank. It was like,
it's unreal.
And they're great guys. They were great tippers and became buddies. And over time, and and I'm still friends with him. So it was
Yeah.
such a nice experience for all of those guys to get. I mean, it was a fun week to say the least.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine. I mean, just seeing what Ovi did when he won the cup, I
Yeah,
think is a good
exactly. I mean,
indication.
well, everyone's, oh, he's crazy, he's Russian. It's like it's
Yeah.
not even that. It's just like that is a lot of steam built up in the boiler that gets released when they finally win, and you
Yeah.
do realize it. You're like, it doesn't matter who you are, man. You're working hard for the better part of a month and a half, and those 16 wins are not easy to get, and
Yeah.
it's a real accomplishment. Every single one of the guys I talked to, from the backup to the backup goalie, to the role players way down on the bench. They all had, perma smiles. They just were like, this is the best feeling in the world. And you could tell that they meant it.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And I wonder if that's one of the reasons why you're able to get along with them so well, is because it's like you have that similar sort of work ethic, because you came to your career later in life, and a lot of these guys might like maybe will get that taste of the cup like in their 30s or whatever. Sometimes it happens earlier, but it's like it's kind of a crapshoot. So I mean, I don't know. Do you think maybe that has any indication why you're able to click with them a little more?
Maybe, I mean, I think I had the greatest experience. We did the whole parade, and we drove down, and there's 500,000 people under the arch, and it's everybody's in the best mood. The whole town is out and feeling good. And
Yeah.
I was sitting there, and we're on the banks of the Mississippi River. We're literally under the Gateway Arch, and I see Chris Thorburn, who's a fourth liner. He's definitely a role player, and beloved by his teammates. Great dude. Just kind of sitting on the levee, kind of looking at the river, and I go over there. I'm like, "What's up, Thorbs? How you doing? Pretty great day, huh?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, really great day." And we both just sat there and kind of watched the river go by and talked about how good it feels, and like it's such a cool feeling. And I was like, "Look, I didn't do anything. I just sat and watched, but you guys must feel really great." And we had the nicest 10-minute conversation. So
That's
yeah, I
amazing.
think there is a lot of and he retired the next year. He was like, "I'm good. I don't need anything else." That's it.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of those guys, when they get to that point, they're just kind of like, you know what? If it happens, then that's it. I can't go any higher, and I just want to go out on top. So, yeah, no, I definitely respect that. But no, really good segue into this. But going into Wild Mountain Thyme a little bit, I read that one of the reasons why you were really attracted to the project was you were a big fan of John Patrick Shanley's work for the stage, and not just the stage, but his other stuff as well. But and you wanted to work with him for a while. So I guess just I'm curious, when you're like looking at someone like that, and there's someone that you see that you really want to collaborate with. In the case of John, what was it that like really resonated with you about his work?
I had known his name from back in the 80s. I think Moonstruck was the first thing that I knew his name from, and I just kind of kept seeing his name popping up in things that I liked. And the next thing was a movie called Joe versus the Volcano, which I adored. Even as a little, I went and saw it in the cinema, and I remember it was like Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan's like next thing after whatever, Seattle, Sleepless in Seattle or something.
Yeah.
They were on a run, man. They were doing like blah blah blah, and they couldn't be hotter. They were the it couple for rom-coms. And then this movie came out, and it tanked like hard. And everyone was, this just doesn't make sense, and it's weird. And I went and saw it, and I loved it. I was like, you guys are idiots. I don't know what movie you saw. It's perfect. It's hilarious. It's weird. It's specific. It's wears its heart on its sleeve. And I was like, oh, it's John Patrick Shanley. Like, of course, like that's his calling card. He's an earnest, emotional storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see like he has the capacity to go from that to something like Doubt, and you go, whoa, like, okay, well, that was a left turn, but then it still has the same hallmarks. It's like it's very earnest. It tells its story in a very specific way, but that kind of magical, kind of lyricism certainly was not a part of Doubt.
Yeah.
I saw that on stage, and then I saw the Outside Mullingar, which was the play that this movie was based on stage as well. and I was just as moved. And I just thought, this is a beautiful story. It's got all of the elements that make Shanley Shanley. It's got this beautiful, magical realism. It's got, Ireland is a fanciful place. It takes place
Mhm.
out of time. It doesn't need to be in the 60s or the 40s or the 20s or the 2020s. It doesn't matter what time it is. It's a story about a boy and a girl and how they can't get out of their own way. And I mean, that's every romantic comedy. It's like, come on, you two, get together.
Mhm.
You have to do it. Do it for us.
Yeah.
uh, but instead of having the kind of ugly American character come in and be the antagonist and be the thing, instead he writes him in such a way that he's a catalyst. He's a person that sort of sees what's going on, and instead of trying to seek his own happiness at the expense of others, instead sort of uses his perspective to push these two closer together, and then everybody gets a moment of grace by the end of the film, which is another Shanley hallmark. It's like it's a beautiful story. It has no cynicism. It has no snark. It has nothing that kind of would lend you. It's the perfect antidote to 2020.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's just a nice love story set in an absolutely beautiful place with beautiful people doing beautiful things.
Yeah, I mean it's super sweet, and I think it has this really sort of like romantic view of Ireland. It is like and I love how they it juxtaposes it with like when Rosemary goes to New York and everything, and then you see sort of like a different side, and then it's like it's cutting back to your love story versus their love story, which is very like sweeping and like magical with like buckets of rain pouring down on them. I mean, it's just one of those things that's just like, yeah, this is it makes you feel good. It's very old fashioned in that
Yeah,
regard.
I mean, and
Yeah.
it's that's on purpose. The Ireland. You don't have to do much set dressing to Ireland to get it to look magical and beautiful. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's Shanley would say things like, by the second week, somebody would go, "Hey, look, a rainbow," and he'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's so used to it. Yeah.
I've seen 150 of them, and it's only Tuesday." Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it really is that. And the time we were there, and I'd never been to Ireland, it was all brand new to me. And it sweeps you off your feet. And these people, the main character, Rosemary and Anthony in our story, are Irish. They're not swept. It's their home. It is what it is. But
Mhm.
again, there's thematically there's a bit of storytelling to be gleaned from that as well, which is like the thing that you're most used to can also be the most beautiful thing in your life.
Yeah.
And that's, again, like it's a lovely message. It's like, take advantage of what's right in front of you.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that we're so used to, especially in a modern setting, of just waiting for what's next or the bigger, better deal or what's coming down the line or whatever. And then there's a perfectly beautiful option that's sitting right in front of you that's begging you to choose it, and you don't see it because you can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing I think this whole horrible situation that we're in has really brought about, which is just like being thankful for what you have and then recognizing like what's there in front of you. It's just kind of put a lot of things into perspective for a lot of people. But I do want to kind of move into some of your other works, if you'll indulge me just a little bit.
Of course.
Kind of speaking to the fact that like people are always after the bigger and better thing. It kind of feels like that's where like TV has transitioned into, and it's really, I feel like with Mad Men it was like a big transition point for television, and you were like it was like you and then Bryan Cranston on Breaking Bad were like one of those last few guys that like got in with the studio dramatic series on like cable television before everything kind of went to like premium and streaming. And so it's like the other interesting thing about that was that like 15 years ago, prior to that, many prominent TV actors probably would have struggled to make the jump going to feature films, but now this is kind of the norm, and I kind of just want to get your take on that whole experience.
Well, like most things, George Clooney paved the way. It's It's interesting. You say 15 years ago, like that was a long time ago, but that's actually when we shot the pilot of Mad Men.
Hmm.
So like the it's more like 25 years ago was a different world, because then you're before The Sopranos, you're before The Wire, you're before kind of the HBO, certain imprimatur that they had, and you're more into the network model, and that's what Clooney came out of in the '90s. Like Jennifer Aniston, there were people that made the jump from TV to film, but it was much rarer, and I think because the difference between TV and film was so much starker, just the way that stories were told. There were either, half-hour sitcoms, multi-camera. There were very few single-camera half hours,
Hmm.
or there were, kind of procedural elements of uh, the hour-long drama, courtroom, hospital, cops. Doesn't mean that they were bad. It's just that they didn't really lend themselves to more of a feature film storytelling mode.
Hmm.
What we have now, which is, I think, vastly more interesting. I don't know if it's better, but it's more interesting. I think Hill Street Blues is a great show. I think ER was a phenomenal show. I think some of the episodes of those shows hold up in the all timers. Um, I put MASH in there. I put Taxi. I put a lot of the old timey shows that people uh, watch. But I think that now we're much more in a world where the storytelling is way more of a feature narrative. You have a longer arc. You have a less episodic uh, way to tell stories, and that's enabled, I think, studios and directors and people to look at the actors in there and say like, oh yeah, that guy could do this thing. He's not only Sergeant McCoy or
Right.
whatever. He could be this other person, and I think that we've seen that happen a bunch of times. I mean, obviously, Cranston is one. I've done my fair share of films, and you just see it all the time. I think more to the point, it's that people see you as a good bet, because now people the line between TV and film is so blurred. It's not There's
Yeah.
TV fans and there's movie fans. It's like that's not a thing. There's just I hate this word, but there's just content fans. Um, and it really it's like it's like there was a big difference between comic books and graphic novels, and now it's like, well, no, comic books are fucking legit, like, and they're the kind of the same thing. They're just different characters, and the
Yeah.
stories are all told in the same way. They're just different. And I think once Marvel finally figured it out, or once Disney bought Marvel and figured it out, and they realized like, oh, these are $1 billion enterprises each, and we own 40 of them. It's like, I don't think anybody thought that Doctor Strange was going to make
Yeah.
$120 million on whatever it was. I don't money. I don't even know what the numbers are anymore. They're so inflated and ridiculous. But I was a comic book nerd when I was in my teens and tens. Like, that's how I got my exercise. I would ride my bike to the comic book store. Like, that was it every Tuesday, and then just sit and read Thor and Doctor Strange and Daredevil and
Hmm.
X-Men, and that was the cool stuff. And as I got older and like started looking for more deeper kind of stuff, you would get into the graphic novels and the Dark Knights, and you'd start understanding which artists and which writers that you would like, and you would get more into more interesting stories that had more layers and levels. And but yeah, it's all viable kind of storytelling at this point.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to have kind of credibility on both sides of the aisle, meaning I can be legitimately, people think I'm funny, or I'm believably dramatic. People, if I say something mean, people don't go, haha, when's the joke coming? They'll believe it. But I've also been able to work with some of like my heroes, whether it's Neil Gaiman or Tina Fey, Robert Carlock. I mean, Lorne Michaels. Like, I mean, it's just, I've been able to be in the room with those people and hold my own, and can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what you're talking about here, which I think is so interesting, is the concept of we're now in an age where the character supersedes the actor. Where it used to be like you needed the actor or the actress to really sell you on like that particular character or that project or whatever. It feels like nowadays people are less interested in like who's playing. Well, I take that back. People do care about who's playing who, but it's more about, oh, we get to see this character brought to the screen, and less about, oh, it's so and so playing that. And so how does that sort of, I mean, you kind of grew up, well, not grew up, but like you came to the industry in that environment, because that was a big reason of why I think you got cast as Don Draper. And so I'm curious, like being like seeing both sides, like what do you sort of make of how that shift has sort of come about?
Well, I think when you have a familiarity with the character, you're right. When it's been established for however many years that this is what Thor looks like, this is what Daredevil looks like, this is what then it's the costume, right?
Yeah.
It's the look. The person in it becomes. I don't like you said. It's not that it doesn't matter, because it does. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. made Iron Man. I was mystified by the success of that. I was like, there's no way Iron Man is going to be a hit, because he's got a metal thing in front of his face. Like,
Yeah, right.
it's
Yeah.
literally an unexpressive, panel in front of his face. And they, God bless Jon Favreau. He did an amazing job of that. But God bless Robert Downey. Like, he made that Tony Stark. It wasn't about Iron Man. It was about Tony Stark. And they figured that out. And he, obviously knocked it out of the park, and has been duly remunerated for that.
Yeah.
But so there is obviously a sense of that, but the the wiggle room in it is significant, obviously, because you can have internet conversations as long as you want about who should be Batman and who should be this one and who should be that one and why, and fan art and the whole thing, and that's become its own kind of cottage industry in many ways, which again I support. Like, it shows people engaging with the medium. I agree with your statement. Like, someone like Don Draper, Don Draper didn't come from a book or a comic book or a graphic novel or anything. It came from Matt Weiner's mind. Like, it was just a total made up construct. And so when Matt was casting the show, he didn't want somebody that came in with a ton of previously held, kind of persona baggage. If Rob Lowe had played Don Draper, it would have been like, oh, it's the new Rob Lowe movie or the new
Right.
Rob Lowe show, whatever. It's like, it wouldn't be like, oh, what's the show and who's that person and what's the thing and why do I care? So obviously there's two ways into casting things and bringing those stories to light. And I think they're both incredibly viable.
Yeah, for sure. I do got to start wrapping it up here, but I just a couple final questions for you, just mainly on like future projects you have on the horizon. I know you can't say much about it, but obviously you have Top Gun 2 on the horizon, Maverick, which was supposed to come out earlier this year before it got delayed. I'm just kind of curious, what your relationship with Top Gun was like, what it was like being on that set, working with like just two massive creative forces in Tom Cruise and Joseph Kosinski. And yeah, just like,
Yeah, well, I would throw Jerry Bruckheimer in there as well.
Right. Yeah.
It was amazing, and I like anybody my age. I was probably 13, 14, 15 when that came out, somewhere in there. So basically in the bullseye of the target demographic of that movie, and was blown away by it. It was and remains an awesome movie. And Tony Scott basically made a commercial for the Navy,
That's true.
It was awesome. I talked to a lot of guys my age in the Navy, and they were like, that's the reason why I wanted to join the Navy. Like, and I could point to like 80 other guys that was the same point. So it was pretty cool. And coming at it in my 40s and seeing all the toys and all the stuff and all the gear, and it hits the same dopamine center in my brain. I'm just like, you start salivating for some reason. You're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then to work with Tom is to work with one of the legends in our industry. I mean, he's literally been famous almost as long as I've been alive, and he's a wonderful guy. He's as friendly as the day is long, and he is the hardest worker you'll ever meet. And he's first on the set, and he's the last to leave, and he gives 110%, and that's who you want at the top of the list, at number one on the call sheet. I've been number one on the call sheet, and I've tried to do my version of that, and it takes a lot out of you. And Tom's been doing it for going on 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been doing it at a very high level, and he commits, and you can tell that this is a project that he deeply cares about. And I saw the finished product, and I'm tremendously proud of it. I think people are going to really respond to it and really dig it.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm looking forward to it for sure. Can you confirm, are you in the volleyball scene, the next volleyball scene that everyone's hyping
up? Adjacent. I'll say I'm in it adjacent.
All right, fair enough. I know I'm definitely looking forward to all that stuff. But listen, John, thank you so much for your time. I really
My pleasure.
appreciate
Thanks
talking.
for the conversation. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Take care.
See you.